we remember when these things were impossible, and our strapline at the School of Calisthenics is redefine your impossible. And I think that resonate with people, because you go like, crikey, I remember when I couldn't be able to do that thing, and it did feel impossible. And it's like, now I can do it. And you have that day where it's like, all of a sudden you can do this thing with your body that you've been working towards that you thought was impossible before, which mentally changes your mindset towards what else. And this is where it becomes powerful. We believe it becomes powerful of like, yes, for your training, but actually, can you use your training as a vehicle to change your mindset around other things in your life that you perceive to be impossible? So that thing at work, or that conversation, or this or that, whatever, family life, whatever it is, like that thing that you're like, I just can't ever imagine being able to do that thing over there in that area of my life. And you go, well, in your training, you also didn't used to think you were going to be able to do a handstand ever, or a flag, or whatever. And you go, well, that process that you went through, apply that and use that to those other things.
Hi, my name is Johnny Lawrence, and welcome to another episode of Life Talk, the self-development podcast. Today, I'm really looking forward to this conversation. It should be a lot of fun, no pressure. I'm here with David Jackson, otherwise and more commonly known as Jacko to everybody, basically. But David, or Jacko, is a former pro-rugby player, a breath coach, the co-founder, along with Tim Stevenson, of the School of Calisthenics.
Yes, you nailed it.
Wicked.
We've just spent 10 minutes practicing saying calisthenics, haven't we?
Literally, that's all we've been doing for 10 minutes. And he's an advanced oxygen advantage coach, which is a scientifically proven breathing techniques to enhance your health and performance, and co-host of the Movement, Strength and Play podcast. How are you today, Jacko, mate?
I'm very good, thank you, and looking forward to delving into a little bit about the I guess a bit about my story then, but the questions you've got around how all these experiences that we go through can help with yourself, or people's self-development. Hopefully I can provide a little bit of value and a few things that people can try and think about, and potentially even towards the end we might get through a few little breathing exercises where people can actually do some stuff.
Yeah, that's always the intention, to add value to the listeners, and also just to catch up really and have fun.
Yeah, no, good.
But I mean, I wonder, how does someone like you feel? Because all of the stuff you do, all of the body weight exercises, look at that avoidance there.
Yeah, no, good.
Body weight exercises, the breathing, and some of the other stuff that you do. Your well-being must be great. How do you feel like walking around?
That's an interesting question. I feel busy.
I
tend to try and do too much, is probably, and that's one of the things around the breathing has been great for me, because it's a chance to take time out during the day, even if it's just literally like 2 minutes, sometimes a bit longer, but to actually just try to slow down and just calm things down a little bit. And that comes down to a little bit of self-awareness, probably, like knowing what you're like in terms of what your personality is like and what your go-to is like. And but how do I feel going around? Probably just the same as everyone else. Like we all have our aches and pains. I played professional rugby for 13 years, so I've got a lot of old injuries that I won't list and bore you with, but there's broken bones and snapped ligaments and things that never really got. I made a couple of, when you're like younger and you make decisions based on the now, not the future.
Yes.
So it was like, do you want to have an operation now and then miss playing rugby for 3 months, or do you want to leave it, just strap it up and then just carry on? And it was like, well, I'll just leave it, strap it up and carry on. And then now I'm like 10 years later thinking, I wish I'd had that operation, but it's too late now.
Yeah, I mean, I used to be a professional wrestler in another life.
Oh, wow.
So
I want to see some pictures. Do the listeners know that? Is this common? I didn't know that. Is this common knowledge?
Actually, in this moment, I don't know if I've ever spoken about.
I want to see leotards, and I want to see lycra. I want to see lycra, and I don't want to see a lot of it. I want to see a lot of skin and a lot of lycra.
I want to say I'd send the pictures to you, but it just gets into a weird area, doesn't it?
Basically, here's me in my leotard. Yeah. I've got one of those as well, but I didn't used to be a wrestler.
Okay, you got no explanation for it. You just got one. Listen, I would really love, for the people that aren't familiar with your work, if you just tell a bit about yourself and just tell your story, really, your origin story of how you became a superhero.
A long way from being a superhero. But so I mentioned there about rugby, so try and keep a bit of a nutshell. So I always played sport as a kid growing up. Ended up sort of, I probably wanted to be a footballer, but I just actually wasn't good enough at football, and I was better at rugby. Rugby, you get beaten up by big blokes. Like, I'm not that big. I was a fast, small guy. In footballs, it seemed a little bit more. You get better paid, and it seemed a little bit more. Anyway, so had the absolute privilege of playing professional rugby for my hometown club, Nottingham, in the Championship. Played over 300 games for Nottingham, and retired from a head injury back in 2013, where I'd had a series of head injuries throughout my career and concussions. And what I wasn't aware of, that there was this build up, this cumulative effect of previous head injuries that was making it easier for me to get knocked out, and how long it was taking me to recover from them. And the final one was just in training, and it was an innocuous challenge, funnily enough, between two of us on the same team, and we were playing touch. We weren't even tackling each other. We were both trying to catch the same ball, and he was a lot taller than me, and his shoulder hit me in the jaw. Like, I can't remember anything that happened that day, but it wasn't a big impact. So one of the lads said I hit the ground, and he said he was about to start laughing because it was just funny. It was just like the two of you running into each other. But then I started having a seizure. So I was having a fit on the pitch, and the lads, it was like, oh, geez. Like, I've never seen anyone ever. I'm glad I don't remember it. And I've never seen anyone have that, and certainly not on a rugby field. But so they put me in the recovery position, get the physio, and then sort of the rest is history in terms of my rugby career. But it sort of, it didn't end there. It took me a year to be able to run without getting some of my symptoms, like headaches and cognitive and emotional stuff. Depression and things like that is a side effect of rugby, a side effect of a head injury. Sorry, side effect of a head injury. And I was trying to, and obviously I was changing then, like, changing careers, and there's a lot of stuff going on. That was a difficult period of time for me, and it was I spent about 3 or 4 months trying to get back to playing, and just wasn't making progress. Seeing some more specialists, and eventually got told that I needed to. It wasn't going to be. Oh, I should get better, but not to the point of, if you go back and play again, the next head knock could be. It sounds. I don't really like saying it, because I think it probably sounds like dramatic, but it's not out of the realms of the possibility that if you had another bad knock like that, then it could be it can be fatal.
Well, we're learning so much about that now, aren't we? Through American football and whatnot.
Yeah.
So
it was lucky for me at the time. The NFL lawsuit had just gone through, so the awareness of concussions went through the roof. Like, when I had my first concussion when I was 16, we just used to laugh at each other. Like, it was just funny because people couldn't remember. I mean, I remember one guy that I was only young at the time, and someone had been knocked out, and he'd broken up with his girlfriend a few weeks before, but he didn't. He couldn't remember that. So the lads were winding him up, telling him, no, you're still you need to ring Mandy. That's how, because we didn't realize the seriousness of it.
Yeah.
So it's, and there's a lot of stuff going into place now. Anyone that does watch any of the rugby, at the moment, very hard, and anything around the safety of the players, and they're doing some great work around the laws to ensure that, which is really positive to see. Yeah.
So can I just ask, before you continue your origin story, that moment that you said, that, because I experienced it to a lesser degree when I stopped wrestling, that I couldn't watch people train or anything for a really long time, because I came out of an injury, and really wanted to get back. And I know what you mean when you say you hit them depressive points, because it's sort of like you put all your eggs in one basket sort of thing, and it's what you've always wanted to do, and the more you do it, the more you want to do it. Sort of what pulled you out of that? What made you feel?
Well, I think there was quite a lot going on, to be honest, at the time in my head. So you've got that side of it where you're giving up, you're having to give up. I just never even liked quitting anything. The reality was, I should have gave up. I should have quit and said, look, I'm not, after a month of still being a zombie, going back to hospital again, going I still can't read a book. I still can't look at light. I'm falling asleep every afternoon. I can't function. And, then still thinking, I'll try and get back to playing rugby, because mainly I knew inside, deep down, I was actually scared of going back on the pitch. And really, my prayers was that the specialist, when it's, I think it was about 5 months later, it was around the Christmas time, I went into after another scan, an MRI, to see the specialist. She was worried about telling me I had to retire. And I was there with the physio thinking, I didn't want to say this to anybody, but I was thinking I do not feel right, and I'm scared that I'm not going to be strong enough to put my hand up and say I don't want to play anymore because I'm not right. And so she was worried about telling me and being like really sorry, and I was like, I'm taking a big sigh of relief, going, right, I don't really know what I'm going to do with my life, but at least that's taken care of. So and then you move so there was all those types of emotions going on, and then it's like, okay, what am I going to do? Like, so I've got a master's in engineering at Loughborough Uni, so I have a background in engineering. I'm actually a qualified science teacher, so I had avenues I could go down, but none of them were like in the sporting realm. So I didn't want to just go straight into like an engineering job or straight into a teaching job. I wanted to use the experience I'd got from rugby and from sport, and that's why I went into strength and conditioning afterwards. But it meant completely like retraining. But that was a bit exciting, if you know, because it was like something new.
I mean, there's a feeling when something like that happens, and I don't think the word is used in that context very often, but there is kind of like a mourning, a feeling of loss when you have to give up something that you love like that. And I can totally understand how being told, listen, you can't do this anymore, how that in some way helped you, because I think had you not that responsibility to wanting to go back and maybe not letting your teammates down or whatever, that's quite powerful, isn't it, when it comes to that?
I mean, I just, and like the context situation is I just signed a new 2-year deal, which was probably going to be my last contract. I was 31 at the time, so I'd played 316 games. Like I'd had my career. There's a friend of mine, Finley Barnum, who was there. Maybe a year after me, like went through the same thing, and he was just the start of his career. Like, so I was lucky to have had my career, and I've made somewhat of a full recovery. There's some interesting stuff around like gut health related to head injuries, and then breathing pattern disorders from head injuries. But as I can fully train now. I don't fall asleep in the afternoon. I don't get headaches. Like those types of symptoms have gone. But so you've got this like I was lucky that I didn't have that. I had that sense of relief rather than like, you can't play anymore, you've got to retire. And I really wanted to carry on because so that side of it was probably a little bit easier to some degree. But then you're on top of that, you've got then the head injury side effects and complications for like your brain, cognitive demand, like you just can't process things. So I mean, I remember this is a story that I didn't used to like telling at first because it just makes me sound stupid, but I'm happy doing it now because it's like I want people to understand that if they've also had a head injury and going through random things like this, then it is it is okay and it will get better. But I was in Co-op or the other supermarkets are available. I was in a shop and I never really eat yogurt, right? But for some reason I wanted some yogurt. And I'm looking at all the yogurts in the shop, and there was like so many different types, so many different flavors. I was so overwhelmed by the choice that as a grown man at 31 years old, I started crying in the middle of the shop because I was overwhelmed by the choice.
Wow.
The cognitive demand of that choice. And I was like, what is going on? Like, this is not like I'd had a number of head injuries before. And so I knew to some degree, like what was going on, but it'd never been as bad as this. And so I guess, that at that point I knew it was bad.
That gives me goosebumps, man. What a self-perpetuating feeling as well. Like it must have spiraled you even more, thinking, I don't know what's happening.
Yogurt.
Yeah. I don't even know what's going on. There's so much to that. That must have been like really like, obviously you can sort of half see, as you laugh about it and stuff, but you can see sort of the comical side. I'm sure your mates banter with you, but you can also see the really distressing side of that.
No, yeah.
That is,
and there's and I probably like laughing a bit now to just try and make myself to not take myself back there, if you know what I mean. It's probably a bit of a protective thing. And I've done some I've done charity work with Headway. It's a head injury charity, raising money and awareness for them, like, and been and seen people that are they've had their brain injury has resulted in like permanent change, that they're never to change their personality, change to their cognitive behavior, where they're never gonna, or they can make progress, but there's a lasting scar or imprint. So I'm lucky and grateful for where I've got to myself.
Mate, I'm really grateful for you saying that, because telling me that story, because that sounds like something quite personal. So thank you for that. I appreciate that.
Right.
But we'll move on. Don't want you to get
yeah.
bad
So
way
well,
about it.
effectively, like after that, I went into strength and conditioning. That's when I met Tim Stevenson. We were working together. A friend. Well, I was looking to get into strength and conditioning. That was like I was like, right, that's what I think I want to go and do next.
Yeah.
But I didn't want to go back to uni to do a degree in it. Tim had done an internship through a company called Sport 981 that were based at Nottingham Trent University, and a friend that I used to play rugby with went to the same church as us. Went, you need to speak to Tim. He's doing S&C, and I'm fairly sure he didn't speak to him about how he got into it. So I then basically went and did that same internship, which was a year long, and then did a lot of training and learning, sort of basically shadowing him. And he was working in Paralympic sport. So my S&C career started with him, where we're working in Paralympics. So 23rd, that would have been 2014. So we're like halfway through the cycle to go to Rio. We were doing and then worked with athletes building up to the Rio Games. And then in 2016, we started the School of Calisthenics together off the back of, we were just looking to train like differently. Once I was able to get back in the gym and train after my head injury, I was like, right, I'm going to smash the weights and I'm going to get massive, because I used to love the weightlifting part of our training at rugby as well as the rugby. But what I realized though was, and I always thought I was like Mr. Motivator. I was like the number one guy, like for work ethic and motivation. Like, I'm not the most skillful, but I'll outwork you, like, and I will turn up every day and I'll do that. And what I realized was, when there was a game of rugby to get fit for, get better for, get stronger for, recover for, my motivation was like sky high. Take away that game of rugby, and I was like in the gym going like, why is everyone training so hard? Like, what's everyone training for? And I was like, just questions of going like, what am I doing here? And I had that issue. And then I was also like doing the same exercises that I was doing when we had a strength coach telling us what to do, because that's all I really knew. So I was almost like training for rugby with no rugby. And there was this massive disconnect. And there was one day I was doing bicep curls in front of the mirror, and I was like, what are you doing? What are you doing?
We've all had that day.
I was like, what are you doing? And I was like, you could do anything. You could train anyway. Like, I used to love martial arts as a kid. Never did it, but like the idea of it.
Yeah.
And I've still never gone and done it. But it was just like this. There's these other things you're wanting to be able to do. And when you're playing like a professional sport like rugby, it's written in your contract, you're not allowed to go and do anything else in case you get injured. So yeah, I'd seen some videos of Frank Madrano, the great calisthenics athlete, and he had some like crazy like stuff go out on YouTube, like back in sort of, it would have been that maybe 2015, 16, something like that. And he, you're like, man, that's how I want to train. Like, yeah. And Tim was playing around with some handstands at the time, because he kept dislocating his shoulder weightlifting. He had a sort of a bit of a thought experiment of, if I can stabilize my shoulder overhead in a handstand, like that's going to give me confidence that my shoulder will stay in its socket. So he'd come from a rugby background as well, and dislocated his shoulder more times than he can remember. But that was before I knew him. Since he's been doing calisthenics is the only time I've known him, and he's never dislocated his shoulder. And the dude's shoulders as strong as flipping anything I've seen.
Well, I've seen what you guys can do. It's unbelievable.
Yeah. So we were looking for a different way to train, but from probably slightly different angles, but both sort of fell in love with calisthenics. We were terrible when we first started. My first ever frog stand, where you're like on your hands with your knees resting on your elbows, I just face planted on the floor. We were literally rubbish.
So was you though? Like,
yeah, 100%.
Because I've
got some old YouTube. All right, I've got some old content that we used to film, and this is when we thought we were actually all right. Like, so I was filming it. Like, we were filming it on my GoPro, and I need to put it together as a bit of a montage, actually, but I'm almost semi-scared to do it. But I've watched it. It's so funny. Like, we were so terrible. But yeah, we didn't, you got to think, two rugby players, one that used to dislocate his shoulder all the time. Another one was, I had a broken scapula in two places and my head injury stuff and whatever else. Trying to do basically I used to call it poor man's gymnastics. Whereas, we'd not done gymnastics when we were kids. And I think that's one of the things that when people see, they can see that, but they know that we can, we hang So we hang our hat at the School of Calisthenics on our coaching ability and the principles we use from strength and conditioning, having worked with all these different Paralympic athletes, where you have to adapt training. You can't just give someone like, here you go, let's do squat, bench, and power cleans, because they might be missing 2 legs or an arm or whatever. So we have to be able to adapt, and we have to be able to think. So we took that same approach to our calisthenics training and coaching, and it started because we were just doing it for our own enjoyment of doing something different with our training. And I say we were genuinely rubbish, but then we gradually got better, and it was like, okay, well, no one else in our gym in Nottingham were the gym, not our gym, the gym we was training in HC. No one else was doing it. We were like hanging off a piece of equipment and trying to use them to do a human flag on or whatever.
Yeah.
That's all changed now, and it's actually become, there's a whole area for it. But people and genuinely someone came up to us like, what are you two doing? It just looks like you're messing about. And we were like, that is essentially what we are just messing. That's what training turned out to be for us at one point. It's not always just constantly messing about, but there is that element of play and fun.
For those, sorry to interrupt, but for those that don't know what it is, can you explain what calisthenics is?
Yeah. Well, just to say that as we went from, like, people could literally see us not being able to do muscle ups, handstands, human flags, and then when they could see us doing them, it was just, they knew we were coaches, so it was like automatically, can you coach us to do that stuff? So
yeah, makes sense.
We did a workshop to those people, and then it just sort of organically just grew from there. But yeah, no, calisthenics comes from 2 Greek words, kalos and stenos, which mean beauty and strength. So it essentially means beautiful strength. It's predominantly using just your own body weight as the resistance. We see movement as a beautiful thing. So our framework with the School of Calisthenics we take our sort of kalos and our stenos to be broken down into movement and strength. We need those 2 things. We need movement in terms of control, in terms of mobility, range of motion, movement patterns. Then we need strength through those entire patterns and ranges that we're trying to create. And it's trying to make stuff look nice, look effortless, even though you're like, if you could see the face, you're like,
yeah.
Someone goes, oh, that looks easy, dude. When you do that human flag, you're like, no. Even if I'm trying to make it look like that, that's just the illusion.
I mean, you certainly do make it look easy, but yeah, I can't. That's my thought when I watch it. It's like, how do you get to that point where you just no-sell how hard it is?
But you just get better at stuff, don't you? But to be honest, the body's getting older. Like, the stuff is not getting easier. That's for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's fun. It's fun, and we just explore. Like, it's expanding. It started for us with like all the. I used to you see a human flag and go, is that real? Like, it looks like it's Photoshop. I've never seen it, but I'd never seen anyone actually physically do one. The first person I've actually seen do one in front of me was Tim's very first one.
Yeah, wow.
And
but I was a cheering day, wasn't it? Like,
we were like, what? But it's funny. But you look back at the picture, and it was like, right, get a picture. And then you look back at the picture, and you're like, oh, it's all right, but it's like, you're a bit off here and a bit off. Do you know what I mean? Because you just, you refine it and you change the goalposts and whatnot. But and we remember when these things were impossible, and our strapline at the School of Calisthenics is redefine your impossible. And I think that resonate with people, because you go like, crikey, I remember when I couldn't be able to do that thing, and it did feel impossible. And it's like, now I can do it. And you have that day where it's like, all of a sudden you can do this thing with your body that you've been working towards that you thought was impossible before, which mentally changes your mindset towards what else. And this is where it becomes powerful, or we believe it becomes powerful, of like, yes, for your training, but actually, can you use your training as a vehicle to change your mindset around other things in your life that you perceive to be impossible? So that thing at work, or that conversation, or this or that, whatever, family life, whatever it is, like that thing that you're like, I just can't ever imagine being able to do that thing over there in that area of my life. And you go, well, in your training, you also didn't used to think you were going to be able to do a handstand ever, or a flag or whatever. And you go, well, that process that you went through, apply that and use that to those other things. So
I've seen that as a powerlifting coach previously. I've seen that more so in women than anything else, like, because there is this preconception by a lot of women that they can't be strong, and then they go and do a really, really good deadlift, or they go and do a really heavy squat or bench press or whatever, And I had a client who previously she's owns a big business, and she'd walk into big meetings and she'd shake the hands of some of the men, and she'd apologize for the calluses on her hands because she can deadlift 160, and that's how she started the meeting. I was like, good for you.
Yeah.
I was like, that's brilliant. That's brilliant.
Yeah.
But I mean, you mentioned that getting older and stuff like that. Can anyone do these bodyweight exercises?
These bodyweight exercises, also known as calisthenics. Yeah, no, like, look, we've got in our online membership, our online community, there is our oldest that I know of. Apologies, there is someone older. Graham Parrington is he might even be, he's probably 73 now.
Wow, great. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
And and there's everything in between. Do you know what I mean? From the it tends to be, people tend to gravitate to us, like the same journey we've been on is like, right, I'm 30 or I'm 40, and I've done the weights thing. I've tried to get massive like Arnold Schwarzenegger. I've sort of gave up on that because I'm not willing to take steroids, and that's what it's going to take. So and I want to look after my body a bit more. And as I've got some kids now, or work's busy, so I need a bit of flexibility to be able to train at home. Like calisthenics becomes that good fit for them, but it still gives them something to get excited about. And something I think you wanted to talk about was the fact that it's your goals start to become based not on numbers and weights on a bar or changing the way I physically look aesthetically. My goals become like, I want to do a handstand. I'm working towards doing that handstand, and one day I'm going to be able to do it. And there's that tangible outcome that's based on what you can do with your body rather than how it looks.
I love that. I mean, you're right. I did want to talk about that because, you pointed out that when you sort of first started doing calisthenics,
Nailed it.
Nice, man. I will get this.
You pass. That's it. You just go bodyweight training for the rest of the
winning. And you mentioned how it freed you from the worrying of how your body looked, and instead started placing the focus on what you could do with your body. And you spoke a little bit about sort of how it changed your relationship between body image and happiness. And that really, I'm there now. I turned 40 last year. I do I train with weights. I've done powerlifting. I've done all these different things. And I think I'm there now. Like I found myself in a position where I think it was last year, I was doing this really heavy deadlift. It was absolute agony. It was really, really hard. And then I couldn't walk for 2 days. And I just sat there and I thought to myself, you would never let a client do that. Why are you doing this? What are you doing this for? To be strong. Strong for what? And then I thought, you know what? I need to make a change. And I think I'm there in this moment. It's talking to you. Hence us talking.
Yeah.
No, I am. I'm there sort of, I'm at that point where I think that this would be a good fit for me. So, I mean,
welcome. we call that I'm the same. It's like, I've finally grown up. I'm like, I've grown up. I'm not just chasing some stupid thing that's actually not good for me.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like a Padawan now. If you're a Star Wars person, which makes you a Jedi. How do you feel about that? That's amazing. So I don't know if that's upgraded you or not. I'm not sure. I'd love to be referred to as a Jedi.
Yeah, that would. Yeah, I'd just love to feel like that's a valid statement, but I'll keep working on it.
So talk to me about that sort of body image and happiness relationship.
It's just that thing of placing our happiness and our value on like how we look. Like we know that is we know deep down, if we ask ourselves that question, like it's not gonna fulfill us, and it isn't. There's all so much more to us as people and as humans than how we look. Like we know that. We know that.
The thing you said about numbers. It's the same with money, right? People think that they're going to get really, really wealthy and it's going to take all the problems away and it's going to create happiness. And obviously there is an aspect of money that makes life easier and makes you happy. But I've got a good friend who states, he's seen people crying in a Ferrari as much as they've seen them crying in a whatever car. Yeah. So, it's the same with that body, right? You see people that are like, have got the aesthetically pleasing body, if that's what you want to call it, on Instagram, and then you find out months later that they've been suffering, and I just think,
and you often look in the mirror and you see something different to the actual reality, like your mind and your brain plays tricks on you, and there is no, there's certain things that will be, like your genetics and stuff, that you're not in control of, like changing those things. And don't get me wrong, not saying that, like when we train well for, as we try to encourage people at the School of Calisthenics, we train well for a movement, and that's our goal. If we train well and we're healthy and our diet is good, and that type of thing, we look after ourselves to help with our like overall health and wellness, so that we can perform well and enjoy life, then you'll have a body that like you'll be happy with, hopefully, as well. But it's not the, so it makes us feel good when we look good, as well as internally feeling good. But it's not the sole focus. It's not the only thing that we're striving for. And just getting that balance right, we've certainly felt it from that mental health perspective of how you perceive yourself and think about yourself and how you value yourself. Like there's more to all of us than how we look. And as you say, even when you might change your body to be able to then look a certain way, is that actually making you happy? And actually, can you maintain it? Did you do some crazy diet to like get down to a certain body fat that is just not manageable, rather than that's not serving your body? The same as just like smashing a deadlift until your back breaks, like isn't serving your body and serving yourself.
No, and then that was the feeling I got. And it's little things, isn't it? Like when you do things like heavy deadlifts, and depending on who you speak to, it's like the ultimate exercise or whatnot. But you try to walk up the stairs and you have to use the banister. You have to time it right if you're going to use the loo.
Yeah, if you're not 85, that's a problem.
Yeah, exactly. I
want to be running up the stairs when I'm 90, type of thing. Do you know what I mean?
I'll tell you what it was for me. It was a moment when I was, I live in Cornwall, and I've got two boys. Yeah, it is amazing. Sorry, I should be more humble. Yes, it's nice. Yes. No, I feel very lucky to live in Cornwall. Yeah, really. But I was playing on the rocks with my sons, and I was watching them bounding from rock to rock without giving it a single thought. Yeah. And I remember being able to do that. And as a man, you sort of never lose that sort of like that stubbornness of, I can still do that.
Still think you can.
Man, no. And I was like, I am not as flexible or as nimble as I once was. That's a problem for me. And and I think that's where I'm at now. I'm not so focused now on being, why do I need to lift 200 kilos in a deadlift? I don't think I do. I don't. Yeah. It's a nice thing that I've done, and I'm glad I did it. But I feel like that for me personally, because I still love the sport of powerlifting, I think I'm happy to put that behind me now.
Yeah. Well, we're because we've been on a journey similar, like something that we're talking quite a lot about at the moment and building our training around is a notion of investing in our physical pension.
That's amazing. Love that.
What you're doing now, you put money aside now so you can enjoy your pension later, but what are you doing physically so you can enjoy your body later?
That's fantastic. Really like that. Yeah.
I've seen a post from Ryan Hurst, GMB, Gold Medal Bodies. He said something like, when did training, it was something, I'll misquote it, but it was the idea, the thing of it was like, when did training become a thing where you like hammer your body, like you should feel better after like a training rather than worse.
Yeah.
And it's that type of thing. Like, are you investing in your body with the way you're training so that you can enjoy your body later in life, or are you actually like, is your training detrimental for short-term gains now? Like a bit like, so when I played rugby, it was short-term gains of like getting better for the game at the weekend, or not having an operation because it meant you could just carry on playing. But it didn't, and that served me in the short term, but not in the long term. And we make those decisions. And if you take me back there again, I might, for a number of those things, would probably make the same decision.
Yeah.
But it's just, but as you get older, you have a bit more insight, don't you? And hindsight's to go on.
It's a tough one, hindsight. But I mean,
a learning curve. Yeah,
it is. And I mean, the irony of it is, I never trained my clients that way, ever. Which
exactly
is a whole self-development thing, hence me being on this self-development journey. And I always state it's a journey, because it's not self-completion. It never stops. Every day we're learning more and more ways to improve ourselves in different areas, and that's it. I'm not just focused on strength anymore. I'm focused on holistically making myself a better person in all areas. And speaking of which, I'd like to move on to your breath coach work because
Nice segue.
yeah, one try. I'd like to move on to the breath stuff because this is sort of, it's interesting. You know, I've got a lot of friends that do yoga and stuff like that, and to them they find it quite funny that breath work is this new buzzword. And I said, but that's the way the self-development business works. It sort of rotates around meditation, breath work, and various other areas, you know, self-esteem, self-limiting beliefs and all that sort of thing. But breath work is I listened to a podcast you were on the other day, is Hayley King's.
Oh yeah.
What's her full name? I forget.
Hayley Ryan King.
Hayley Ryan King, that's it. Yeah, Hayley Ryan King. And you gave a great explanation about sort of the well-being benefits of it. And this is where you're like, cheers, Johnny. I don't remember what I said.
Yeah, I can't remember what I said.
but I'm sure that like you know, you could talk. I mean, speak to me about why it's important and sort of what it gives you.
Well, I think that it's how you breathe is happening automatically in the background, whether you choose to be aware of it or not, until you die, until you take your last breath. And the beautiful thing about breathing is that we have the opportunity to become more aware of it and consciously train it, consciously manipulate it, like positively, which helps regulate our autonomic nervous system. You know, the autonomic nervous system is not quite as automatic as it's not only automatic, it's not only autopilot. We can, you know, change our breathing rates to manage how we perceive like external stresses, and how we can like balance between that sympathetic fight or flight response and that parasympathetic rest digest response. And a lot of, you know, in a sort of like in a nutshell, a lot of it is being able to like calm the breathing, soften the breathing, take less breaths per minute, and thinking about like relaxing and extending exhales to help with that shift towards that parasympathetic tone is like one element of that sort of like calming aspect of it. You know, there's some other stuff that is linked in with the, you know, with the oxygen advantage, who have done my training with Patrick McKeown. It's far more to, you know, I'm not a yoga teacher, so I don't want to sort of I've been to a fair reasonable number of yoga classes, and I never got to grips with like breathing at the right time. And I didn't like, I needed it to be separate of go like, we're going to actually just work. So we're going to actually work on our breathing, like, because doing this like movement and stretch within it is like, there's too much going on for me. And about 2 years ago, I just sort of started asking myself the question of like, am I breathing right? Because there were certain things for me that were like, no matter what, sort of, I got like old shoulder injuries from rugby, and it was like nothing, like what, no matter what sort of like stretching or mobilizations and soft tissue work you do, it's like there'd always be some like residual like tightness or issues around like the neck, the chest, the ribs and stuff. And I started just wondering, it's like I feel like there's something going on in the background that I'm not addressing, like a bit more of a root cause to this thing. And breathing was one of those things that's like, well, it's happening all the time in the background. It's a movement pattern. It's like, am I doing it right? And that's where the journey started for me, of just pondering that question, and for quite a long time, not really making that much progress or going very far. Went to a workshop with Richie Norton, the Strength Temple. He recommended that he's trained with Oxygen Advantage. And he was like, I said to him, like, is there any I want to know about this more. Like, I feel like this is the thing I need to take a bit of a deep dive into. And he was like, read the Oxygen Advantage. That is a game changer. So that was one of Patrick's books, where he's built this whole system of the Oxygen Advantage. And yeah, that was a game changer. And yeah, we can go through a few exercises with people to help them with it. But there's some stuff around like the concussion and head injuries that I've had. And this is only something I've found out more recently, is that can have an impact on your respiratory like center in the brain and top of the brainstem, that is monitoring your levels of carbon dioxide to tell you when to take your next breath, and will affect potentially our breathing patterns. So we can get breathing pattern disorders, which will change like how you breathe, breathing more from the upper chest and the mouth rather than from the diaphragm, and making, having that nice rib articulation that we can go through, and breathing through the nose. And it's like that's linked to a stress response. Like when we're in fight or flight, like we breathe shallower, we breathe faster, it's more upper chest, and we breathe from the mouth. It's part of that response, as adrenaline going up, like it's part of that. And so the same way, like that makes us go that way, we can change our breathing to like shift us away from that when we feel stressed, but it's just an email that stressed me out and I need to just calm down or whatever. Or I've finished my training session and I've been really ramped up for training, but now I need to start thinking about recovery. And before I'm going to like eat my post-workout meal or my post-workout shake, like I need to get out of that sympathetic tone and I need to get towards that parasympathetic rest digest. So I do some work to slow down my breathing, calm down my breathing, extend the exhales, utilize it, just getting control of the system, but using the breath to do that. It's the same thing for like improving sleep before you go to bed, taking time whilst you're conscious before you go effectively unconscious or not. You can't change your breathing when you're asleep. So doing something before you do during the day and, literally before you go to bed, you can work on your breathing patterns to generate good habits so that when you fall off to sleep, then you're staying in those good breathing rhythms and you're breathing through the nose and it's from the diaphragm and it's calm and it's relaxing and you are in a rest, digest, recover state, rather than, if I'm snoring and breathing through my mouth at night from the upper chest and it's shallow, I'm effectively in a, like, to a degree, a sense of like sympathetic, like fight or flight response, because I'm doing the same breathing patterns it would be. And I wake up in the morning with a dry mouth and I don't feel like I've had a refreshed sleep. It might be that you've been breathing poorly all night and you're just completely not aware of it.
So you mentioned like trying some of that out. I'm quite keen to do that. But
yeah,
one of the things I noticed in what you're saying is like everything seems almost preparatory, and it reminds me of like something I saw where someone said, when you meet a calm person, that they're a breather. And someone will come up to them and say, I've got something to tell you, and I go, wait, go. And it's like that preparation of like I need to brace myself, and it's just interesting that it's that deep breath that's the choice for preparation. So, and I could hear that, preparing for sleep, preparing to train, preparing to calm down after training, preparing to read an email, preparing yourself after the email. And it's just a lot of that. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I love what I've heard you say before, and you mentioned some of it there about the shallow breathing through the nose, and sort of the operation of the rib cage, how it's supposed to sort of move. And a lot of people think of it just as a part of your fixed skeleton. But actually, all you need to know, all you need to do to find out whether your ribs move is go for a run after not going for a run for a long time, and you'll feel them intercostal muscles. And then you'll realize that, that does move. Sometimes a bit more than you expect. So yeah, I mean, and
the interesting one, there's one interesting point about like we say that preparation breath, or like taking a deep breath to try and like calm down. What often happens a lot of the time is how we perceive what taking a deep breath is we take a big breath and we go, and often we'll actually breathe in through the mouth. And actually, as you see me there, I just went, what I do, I just lifted the rib cage. So when I'm breathing from the upper chest, I'm not filling the lungs from the bottom. A deep breath, if you think of a swimming pool, the deep end is where the water is far from the top. A deep breath means filling from the bottom of the lungs. And what's the bottom of the lungs? The diaphragm. So, and that rib articulation, talk about the ribs being able to move out and externally rotate to allow the diaphragm to move down. That helps, that creates more space in the thorax, and that increase in volume reduces the pressure, and air then is able to come and enter in because of that reduced pressure. And it's going to be filled from the bottom up, because the driver for it is your diaphragm, which is your number one breathing muscle. So deep is to do with like, think how far from the top, rather than like we often take a deep breath, people take a big breath, or effectively a mouth upper chest breath, which actually isn't calming and relaxing. That mouth upper chest breathing is linked to our sympathetic fight or flight response. So there's a bit of I don't know why that sort of misconception has happened, but it's one that
so you encourage people to breathe through their nose, is that right?
Yeah. So breathing. So breathing through the mouth is linked to upper chest breathing and that sympathetic fight or flight response. Whereas nasal breathing in and out through the nose, makes you more connected to your diaphragm. There's a link between your nose and your diaphragm. Your nose is designed for breathing. Like I can't remember. There's something like 30 different functions of the nose that prove that it's designed for breathing. It's not designed for. Yeah, the mouth is not designed for breathing. The mouth is designed for eating. So when you breathe through the nose, you're more likely, you need to work on being able to utilize and use your diaphragm. If you've created a habit for a long time of breathing through the upper chest, like I'd have done, I switched to nasal breathing. Like, right, I'm now nasal breathing, and it's an absolute snot fest, and it's really difficult. But I now must be using my diaphragm, because that's what the sort of text and the research shows us, that there is that link. But I needed to change that habit. I actually didn't even know how to contract my diaphragm and make that work. And there's some really simple exercise, but like we can do one now. It's really simple to help with that.
I watched your video the other day of clearing your nose.
Yeah.
I was doing that on the bed on my bed. Like my wife walked to me, "What are you doing?"
And you're just like head banging. You're like, I'm going resting again. If people because it's a really easy one for the listeners. If even if you're not even watching the video, if you're just listening to the podcast now, we can do a little drill to clear the nose, and then one very simple one to make you feel your diaphragm work, and then you can start to think about getting that sort of diaphragmatic breath coming in through the nose.
Perfect. Let's do it.
Yeah. So it's a sense of, in essence, it is a oxygen advantage style breath hold, but just not hard or challenging breath hold at all. We do them always after a normal exhale. So I'll explain, and then we'll do it together. We breathe in through the nose. We breathe out through the nose just normally, pinch the nose, keep the mouth closed. And then we're going to hold our breath and nod our head 10 times. And then you're going to let go and breathe in through the nose. It's very important we breathe in through the nose afterwards, because there's nitric oxide in the back of the nasal cavity starts to accumulate, and we take that nitric oxide and we take it through into those upper airways and into the lungs. And nitric oxide is a vasodilator, meaning it helps open blood vessels and open the airways up.
I'm not going to be speaking in a high-pitched voice afterwards, am I?
No, it's not that. It's not helium. But just before we do that, just breathe in strongly through the nose now, just to notice how blocked or easy it feels. And then just block one nostril and breathe through one, and compare one to the other. Often one will be more blocked. So my left one is more blocked right now. Apparently that swaps every 90 minutes. The brain tends to use one, then the other, and it swaps them over. So it lets one do some work, and then the other one has a bit of a rest, and apparently so. But yeah, notice what that feels like. And then we'll do normal breath in, normal breath out, pinch the nose, 10 head nods, let go, breathe in through the nose, and you're going to feel a clearing sort of sensation going on. Okay. So normal breath in through the nose, normal breath out through the nose, pinch the nose, and we nod 10 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Let go and breathe in through the nose. Good. And get into the habit of not trying to suck air in through the nose, like let it come in through the nose. So when we're trying to suck it in, if you lift those shoulders and rib cage as well, like we're teaching ourselves those bad habits. So if that was easy, you can try like 15. And you can do this like 3 to 5 times. If you're pregnant or have any high blood pressure or any underlying serious health conditions, we shouldn't be doing like breath holding, and particularly like strong. This is not a strong breath hold whatsoever. So this should be like calming and not challenging at all. And if 10 felt really easy, let's try 15 now, and just to see if we get a bit of an effect. Yeah. So normal breath in, normal breath out of the nose, pinch the nose. 15. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Let go of the nose and breathe in for it. And it should feel immediately, you might notice that it's a little bit clearer. The air might feel a little bit colder on the way in. And then check, so my left one was a little bit blocked before. That feels fine now. And the right one felt fine before.
Yeah, it does. That's exactly what I noticed. It felt fresher. That makes sense. Yeah.
It's like you've eaten a Minto or a Polo or something like
that. With my nose.
Because it's that nitric oxide is opening things up. So if it's easier now to breathe in and out of the nose, and breathing in and out of the nose can help with this, activate our diaphragm. Our diaphragm, our number one breathing muscle. We'll do another breath hold. Essentially, it's essentially a breath hold, but the focus is going to be on trying to make you connect to your diaphragm. If I asked you to tense your diaphragm or contract your diaphragm now, you either wouldn't really know how to do it, or you might tense your abs because it's like sort of somewhere down there. But it's deeper than that. It's underneath. And it's underneath those bottom, the bottom portion of the rib cage. And so if you find your lower 2 ribs with your hands, and just you'll notice that the angle that they're at, and the diaphragm is going to sit somewhere in the line in a dome shape when it's relaxed. When you breathe in, it moves downwards about 1 or 2 centimeters, and those ribs are supposed to actually move outwards. And when you breathe out and exhale, the ribs come back together and the diaphragm moves back. So, but if I asked you to tense, so if I asked you to tense your bicep, you'd do that because you know what that feels like to tense your bicep. I actually tense your diaphragm. It's like, I don't know how to contract it. So what we do is we do what we call a blocked inhalation, meaning we do a normal breath in, a normal breath out, pinch the nose again. Rather than nodding the head this time, you're going to put your hand just below your sternum, in between those 2 lower ribs where your diaphragm is going to sit. And you're going to feel when you try to take a breath, you're going to try and breathe in, but you're holding your nose and you've got your mouth closed. So no air can come in, but your diaphragm is going to try to pull some air in for you, and you'll feel it move and you'll feel it contract. So you're going to try underneath that bottom hand, you're going to try to like engage that diaphragm by trying to breathe in, and try to breathe a long, deep, strong breath and see what happens, or feel what happens underneath where your hand is. So normal breath in, normal breath out, pinch the nose, and then try and breathe in a long, strong, deep breath. You should feel some movement underneath where your hand is. Yeah, cool. And then relax.
Oh,
yeah. So it should feel your diaphragm moving downwards and moving outwards a little bit as well. So it goes from this dome and it comes down and flattens out. And those ribs moving outwards create the space to allow it to do that. So if your ribs are all stuck down and tight, like they're not articulating to allow the space for the diaphragm. So these things need the ribs and the diaphragm need to work together, and your nose needs to be clear enough to allow that air to come in. And so what I like to do with people is now, if you put your hands on the outside of those 2 lower ribs, as you breathe in, just before you breathe in mentally, try to imagine you're doing that blocked inhalation, but obviously you're not. You're going to let air come in. So you get that same sensation as what it felt like in that blocked inhalation where your diaphragm's moving down. The ribs should move your hands out slightly and just let air come in through the nose. It's the difference between breathing through the nose compared to breathing with the nose. If I breathe with the nose, it's like I'm like sucking air in with it. That's action coming from here. No, we want the breath to be activated and to start from the diaphragm. So with the inhale, you imagine you're doing that blocked inhalation. You feel the diaphragm move. Should feel the hands move out slightly, and air just enters in through the nose. Restoring our diaphragmatic breathing in that manner is like one of the most important things we need to do for the habits of our breathing. And being able to control our breathing at rest and practice it at rest gives you a better chance of when you're exercising of breathing better. There's no one that breathes really poorly at rest, but then when they're exercising, they're a fantastic breather. It just doesn't work like that. If you're a fantastic breather when you're exercising, you'll be a fantastic breather at rest. But you can't, it's difficult to work on your breathing when you're exercising because the oxygen demand is so high, your carbon dioxide levels are rising, and we'll have this issue around our tolerance of carbon dioxide, and we need to restore our sensitivity and tolerance to carbon dioxide. When we can't tolerate much carbon dioxide building up in the blood, when oxygen gets used in every cell in your body to make energy, carbon dioxide levels rise. Carbon dioxide is produced. It's not just a waste gas, even though we do have to we have to breathe out to get rid of it. We need some accumulation of carbon dioxide in the blood to allow oxygen that is attached to red blood cells with the hemoglobin, for it to release the oxygen to allow it to go from the blood into the cells. When we breathe too much and overbreathe and mouth breathe, we get rid of a lot of carbon dioxide very quickly. When we have less carbon dioxide in the blood, the hemoglobin it keeps its affinity to oxygen. So even though you've got oxygen in the body, it stays in the blood and doesn't get to the cell. So you still feel out of breath. So you then keep breathing. The brain is monitoring, the respiratory center in the brainstem is monitoring not levels of carbon dioxide, levels of oxygen, it's monitoring levels of carbon dioxide. So when you want to take your next breath, your impulse to breathe is not because the body's gone, we need to get some more oxygen in. No. It's going, CO2 has got to this level, we need to breathe to let that go out. And the problem is when we have poor breathing habits and we breathe too fast and too much, that changes. And that's linked to what that's that mouth, upper chest breathing that's shorter and shallower. We breathe too fast. That's linked to that sympathetic tone. And what that does is the respiratory center in the brain just adapts to that and goes, right, if this is the breathing rate you want to go at, and we're only allowing a little bit of carbon dioxide to build up, well, that's how we're gonna change and adapt. So we have to do some work to change our sensitivity to carbon dioxide and therefore increase our tolerance. And we do with our lighter, longer breathing, utilizing the diaphragm is one of the breathing light exercise that we do with the Oxygen Advantage, and the breath holding that we do, where we actually, we challenge our breath holding whilst walking and whilst jogging and that type of stuff, to allow the body to accumulate low oxygen and high CO2 during a breath hold, creates an environment within the body where we are sort of forcing an adaptation to say, like, this high level of CO2, that's what we're going to try to get more used to. It increases the buffering capacity in the blood. We get an increase in red blood cell count from the reduction in oxygen. It's the same type of training effect people get when they go to altitude for altitude training. In altitude, there's less oxygen and high CO2.
I mean, you can see why they encourage breathing techniques for panic attacks and things like that. You can see how that can sort of like calm you down, or just essentially change your mood.
Yeah,
I suppose.
One of the great ones for anxiety. This could be the last one that we do, actually, if it's okay to do one.
Yeah, of course.
Great for anxiety, and like if you're feeling like that anxious and we need to calm down, like just by thinking about our breathing is happening sort of right here, right now. It's central to us, and it brings you back to the present moment. Very short breath holds is where we're going to hold our breath after an exhale for just 3 to 5 seconds, so not very long at all, and have 2 breaths recovery in between. Can be quite nice and quite calming. So we do a normal breath in for the nose, normal breath out for the nose, pinch the nose, and we hold for 3, 2, 1. Let go. Breathe in for the nose, breathe out. That's one breath. Breathe in for the nose, breathe out. That's the second breath. So pinch the nose, 3, 2, 1. Let go. Breathe in for the nose and out. Breathe in for the nose and out. Pinch the nose, 3, 2, 1. Let go. Breathe in for the nose, breathe out. Breathe in for the nose, breathe out, and then we'll hold for 4, 3, 2, 1. Breathe in for the nose, breathe out. Breathe in for the nose, breathe out. We'll hold for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Breathe in for the nose. So you can just carry on that. You could carry on that pace for a couple of minutes, where anywhere between 3 to 5 seconds of very, very short breath holds, 2 like just nice, light, normal recovery breaths in between each of those. Just can create a sense of calm when we are feeling a little bit anxious or stressed out. And it's also a nice introduction for people if they've never done any breath holding before. Like, just holding your breath for a few seconds can feel a bit weird, and getting used to it can be beneficial.
I've done breathing techniques like that before, where you're encouraged to breathe in and hold and out, but I've never done it holding my nose. That actually really helps, because you ask somebody to hold. It's funny, you can hold your breath, right? But as soon as someone says hold your breath, it gets weird. You're like, it's really strange.
And when you tense up, it gets worse. You've actually got to try and relax.
And that's what that does, because it feels more intentional, which is a really. Listen, this has been fantastic, Jacko. Thank you so much for your time today.
No, my pleasure.
Yeah, we were going to talk about a bit of cold water swimming, but I feel like you've got like a life to get to.
That can be part 2. We'll do a second part.
Absolutely. That would be great. That really would. Or maybe we do a live on Insta or something. That'd be cool.
That'd be cool. Definitely.
Fun. But listen, tell people where they can find you, any projects you got going on, anything you want to draw people's attention to.
We talked a lot about the School of Calisthenics, so that's schoolcalisthenics.com, and on social media at School of Calisthenics, sort of everywhere, probably most prominent on Instagram. My personal Instagram, where I share a lot of the breathwork stuff, is Jacko Human Flag, because when I started my Instagram, I like doing a lot of human flags. It's more about just being human now, probably, than just human flags. If you're, I've got a YouTube channel with all the breathing stuff on, and I do.
What's the address for that?
So the YouTube is just David Jackson.
Right. So
cool. I guess I can send you the links to it, so you can put it in the show notes. That'd be cool. And I do like 3-week small group, 6 to 8 people, little introduction to breath work over a 3-week small group course online via Zoom. So if people are interested in those, they're quite sort of, I've got a bit of a backlog of waiting list of people, but where, because I want to keep the group small so I can work with people rather than just doing a massive group and people not really being able to engage. But if people email, I'll send my email, davidjacksonfitness@gmail.com. I can give you that as well, so you can put in the show. But yeah, if you're interested in the online groups, then I can put you on the waiting list. I'd be happy to help people with their breathing.
That's just perfect. Thank you so much. Really enjoyed that. It was a lot of fun, and
cheers,
I learned a lot as well. So check that out. You know?
So did I. I learned about myself.
You're like, I didn't know I knew this stuff. So yeah, cheers for your time. And like I said, we'll maybe talk about doing something on Instagram. That'd be great fun.
Yeah, sure, definitely.
Great. Cheers.
Thanks, mate.